And you were live.
Good evening, everyone. It's one, the only, the illustrious ape, the gorilla in the econo mist, coming to you live tonight with the special team. The Avengers have been assembled. One and only Bankster Slayer, Ken Schortgen, Wolf Gray, and we still don't have the Russian yet because it's still a mild winter. I'm sorry. It's a mild winter in New York. It's not cold enough for the Russian, but he will make his appearance sometime soon, hopefully before the Siberian spring starts, and we can look forward to having him join us as well. We got CJ on the turntables, making sure the lithium crystals and the flux capacitors are firing properly and evenly. That this broadcast is coming out without any sort of problems, and is keeping all the Russian hackers away. Good job, CJ. With that being said, guys, check us out on RogueMoney.net. Check out Ken's YouTube channel, The Daily Economist, as well as Bankster Slayer's YouTube channel, and also their respective websites, which is thedailyeconomist.com, as well as slaythebankster.com. And also Wolf Gray, you can find him right now exclusively stomping around, stalking in the woods of Rogue Money when he's not out there finding creative ways to kill things. With that being said, guys, welcome aboard, all of you, for another wonderful Contributors Night. And Happy
Good
New Year to you
evening.
all.
Yo, yo,
Hey,
yo.
and it's Friday the 13th, baby.
Yes, it is Friday the 13th. I love it. I'm wearing my Jason mask as we speak. It looks kind of funny, but, I'm trying to make it work here. Good deal. So who wants to start off? I mean, it's a new year. We got 7 more days till Obama's gone. I'm ready to celebrate. I have a very cheap bottle of champagne that I'm going to open when he leaves office. So I'm excited about this, guys. How about you?
Good riddance.
Sure we are. Yes.
Absolutely. Wolf, what's your take, man? I mean, it's New Year's. How was your holidays? And what do you feel about Odumbo finally leaving?
It could have happened about 8 years ago to suit me fine. I'm interested in the Trump transition. I keep seeing things with some of his appointees. I got in a panic, but my buddy London Paul straightened me out this morning.
Nice.
He said something about, Tillerson said something about the China Sea, and we're going to straighten the South China Sea out. And then Mad Dog said something about Russia, and we're going to straighten Russia out. I thought, gee whiz, these guys are off point. And I sent him a communique, and he said, just rhetoric to get it to the 20th. Just ignore it.
That's right. And we interviewed London Paul this morning, so that interview is going to be up for everybody that wants to listen. That interview will be up on Saturday, so keep it tuned here. Subscribe and hit that little bell tab that they got going on YouTube, so when the interview is posted, you are alerted when that happens.
Hey, isn't Tillerson just saying whatever he needs to say to get confirmed?
That's what Paul said.
Absolutely.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, you got to remember, too, is that the Democrats have no power. All of these confirmations are going to be majority vote. The Democrats are playing their kabuki theater because they desperately need to try to show to what little base they have left that they're in their corner, and they're going to work this. But the other fact of the matter is they know that the establishment is going to get crushed. And the person I'm waiting for, and as Via said, he knows Trump from a close range, and that what McCain, when it was revealed that McCain was involved in this fake news, I would not be surprised if at a certain point Trump starts collecting things like that picture of McCain with the Syrian Free Army, aka al-Nusra and al-Qaeda, with the information on his hard drive about the ISIS fake beheadings and that. Starts putting that together, presents it. Let's Sessions, and Sessions is going to be willing to have vendettas from being in the Senate. He is going to go, and if McCain gets grabbed, and you know what, all he has to do is do the NDAA. If Congress wants to pass the NDAA where anybody can be taken without any indictments or criminal charges, just take McCain, throw him in a thing, show a little bit of this evidence that he was abetting terrorism, and that's that.
Well,
And
McCain
it will scare a ton of congressmen. The other thing you do is that you present the evidence to McConnell and Ryan beforehand and say, I'm going to do this. And if not, then this is going to go in the public that he's a traitor and that Congress is trying to protect him. And I think they're going to have to fall on board.
The funny thing is, if they do that to McCain, it'll be like a trip down memory lane for him.
Yeah, only this time he won't be singing his soul to a Soviet interrogator working for the North Vietnamese. He's going to be doing it to people who know a little bit more about getting information.
Exactly. I'd like to see McCain waterboarded, especially with that tumor that's starting to grow on the side of his face. I don't know if it's the left side or the right side, but every month that passes, from all the shenanigans, from all the debauchery, all the lies this guy's putting out, that one side of his face is getting bigger and bigger, kind of like Pinocchio's nose, man. I'm afraid, Ken, that it's going to be like the movie Aliens, where the xenomorph will just burst out of the side of his mouth. It's this guy's unbelievable. Him and Mrs. John McCain. Let's not forget Mrs. John McCain, aka Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, but I think Lindsey Graham goes just as a lapdog of McCain. Lindsey Graham is a coward, and if they take out the ringleader, then Lindsey Graham's going to fall into line very quick.
Absolutely.
It's the old saying: if you want to instill fear and morale and boost morale, then you kill a few people but make everybody watch.
Right. Exactly. Right. That's very true. Bankster, it's Friday the 13th. What's your take? What's going on?
Well, Friday the 13th is always special to me because the whole superstition of that supposedly emanates from the day that the Knights Templar were rounded up.
That's not true?
Friday the 13th of 1307, October.
Okay, yeah, all right. I was about to say. I was like, wait a minute, I thought that was true. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that part is true. What they're not telling you is the Knights Templar had a month heads up before that was going to happen, and that time is what enabled them to get all their ships out of the port of New Rochelle or La Rochelle
in France.
And right, and that was the beginning of how the Knights Templar began to go underground and then recreated themselves, and they never really went away. And that all really ties into my Antarctica article that I posted earlier this week about the Piri Reis map that was known, and not just that map, but other maps that preceded it. The existence of North and South America and the Antarctica was well known for at least 300 years before the voyage of 1492. They had been going back and forth in secret expeditions for a long time.
Wow.
Until Pope Innocent VIII really could not hold it back anymore. Actually, this is all from Joseph Farrell's books. Two of his books in particular talked a lot about this. And what Venice, the Vipers of Venice, the Banksters of Venice, they knew about the New World, but they were a bit landlocked because they couldn't sneak out of Europe. They couldn't get past Spain until they moved their own headquarters out.
Yeah.
What led them to move their center of operations into the city of London and Amsterdam. And they had to secure the papacy. That was the other thing. So when Pope Innocent VIII came into power, he was very pro-Knights Templar, even though officially the Knights Templar were officially, popular. So, I mean, we've been just lied to for so many years.
And these guys are the forerunners of the current banksters that we have today.
That's right. It's just a nonstop series of secret societies and interlocking bankster fraternities from their time period and before that time period, it all links back to ancient Babylon. And this is something that was mentioned in Joseph Farrell's books, and I had one paragraph in my blog about it. They know from these ancient maps that the accuracy was so great that the known scientific knowledge of the Greeks, which tells us that these maps were known to prehistory, to ancient peoples, even before Babylon. So we're talking about civilizations that existed before Noah's flood, which would also help answer how it is that they knew about a land that was not covered by ice.
Wow.
Oh, when I first wrote my first Antarctica blog, I was thinking I'll just write one. Then I wrote the second and realized I have enough material for at least 2 or 3 more.
Yeah. Ken, Wolf, what's on the horizon, man? What do you see? I mean, you went through 2017 unscathed, thank God. But what do you see coming down, brother?
I think that, well, I've been saying for some time, 2008 was the beginning of the collapse. I think we're in the final stages of it. I think there is a stage to it. I think that 2016 was, and I put this in the last article I put up, but 2016 was the appetizer. Folks like people listening to your show that read Rogue Money that are a little bit in tune to the economic and geopolitical environment probably got things last year and saw things coming together and realized we're getting close to where the standard of living starts changing. 2017, in my view, is where the rubber meets the road. This is the main course. I feel like, and the reason I say that is based on sources I trust, instead of derivatives going back and forth and carry trades and paper manipulations being the only thing we have to talk about with regards to the dollar and foreign currencies and the economy, we're now hearing about rejections of goods and services from the Eastern suppliers and Eastern nations not wanting our paper, be it dollar or debt denominated. They don't want it. And if this is the case, we're going to see business leaders start realizing, yes, Trump is the guy we want for the rebuild, but it does not cure the problems we have. And we're going to have to go through these problems. 2017, I think, is when it shows up. The dollar's being rejected and it's now affecting on the ground business. I don't know how it can be avoided much longer to where people's standards of living get affected. And I think it's this year.
Awesome. Wait, we just have a report in right now, folks. This man, the Globetrotter, the international man of mystery who has been running around all over the place, he has his camera turned on his phone, it seems like. You better turn that off, man. I know you're trying to dodge some predator drones here. But turn that camera down. We see you, buddy. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Now give us a blurry view of your Jaguar's interior. There you go.
Actually, this isn't the Jag. This is something else there.
Which classic car are you driving today, sir?
Well, actually, I'm driving a classic, all right, but it's not a car. It's a
truck.
My truck, yeah. So I've been shuffling some things around.
Oh man. Okay, so you've dodged the predator drones. What's going on, W? Happy New Year, bro.
Yeah, for sure, guys. Well, I've just been enjoying listening to what all you guys had to say, and I've been on other stuff while this whole transition thing is happening, and so while I haven't been involved in anything, in the political realm related to it, I have been kind of. It's been interesting to have the meetings with people from a business environment from around the world, from other places, and get their input on how they perceive things to be. And so one of the interesting meetings I had was with some folks out of Luxembourg. And of course, Luxembourg is kind of an interesting country all by itself. It's only 400,000 people. They border on Germany and Italy and France, and they, it's a banking, location. And so the changes that have happened there over the last decade or so, decade and a half, have been pretty large because the constraints on banks and the making it so they couldn't have their privacy like they had, the Swiss banks, etc., disclosing here to the U.S. and other places. A lot of what was their business as a country has been whittling, been smaller and smaller. So I was curious what these folks thought about Trump coming into office. And they were all very positive. They, I had really actually expected for them to be more pro either Hillary or Obama, but they were pretty universal that what had been happening in Europe and what had been happening in the banking industry was so negative that it was not survivable unless we had this type of a major change. And of course, one of the interesting things too, they were talking about the fact that, the language that most people speak is French, the business language is German, and then how they record transactions and documents like that is mostly either French or German. But Luxembourg's interesting also because they have a spoken language that isn't written, Luxembourgese. And so what they were discussing, amongst other things, was the fact that they've gone to, in some of their banking transactions, a communicated non-written language that's represented by some symbols as opposed to the normal ledger type accounting. And interesting conversation all by itself that it's kind of like in school code between themselves, but because they felt they had to in order to protect themselves from some of what's going on in the governments in the banking world. So it's kind of a little side thing. I don't think it has any application to any of your listeners precisely, but it just goes to things are in flux, and at least their perception was it's going in a positive direction with Trump.
That is good to know. That is good to know. Kenny, what's going on your end, man? What's on your radar?
My big thing is a couple of interesting things. I think the currency and the bond markets are going to be the number one. Screw the stock markets. Those are just peripherals manipulated that reflect virtually nothing. But going back to June, Bill Gross said that he believed, because of negative interest rates, that we were on the cusp of a potential supernova in the bond collapse. Mm-hmm. And what Wolf was saying about a loss of the standard of living, well, since our entire economy is based on debt and credit, that's only a natural outlay. Is if they can't create new debt or new credit and increase the debt, then everything's going to implode. Jobs are going to be lost. Standard of living is just going to fall down. But I've got a number of at the beginning of the year, I wrote a Rogue Money article, what I felt was going to be the number one news item of this year. Mm-hmm. And people took it the wrong way. They thought I was saying that the dollar was going to lose the reserve currency status. But in reality, what I just said was it was going to lose the unipolar status. Mm-hmm. There were going to be multiple different reserve currencies. And the way it's going to be done is, obviously, the U.S. isn't going to allow for a Bretton Woods type event where it's a orchestrated changeover. But all fiat currencies are backed by what? They're backed by confidence. Mm-hmm. And if somebody's strong enough, with enough countries backing them, publicly made a statement that we no longer have confidence in the dollar, what's that going to do instantly to the reserve currency? It's going to absolutely crash, and you're going to see a flood to the door of everybody who has their treasuries and their dollar reserves gone. Well, one of the interesting things also that came under the radar, I don't know if you saw this, but obviously 2017 is going to be the year of the blockchain.
Yes.
Banks, financial institutions, everybody and their brother is trying to make applications to work on the blockchain. Well, I came across this interview over at CoinDesk, and guess what entity, what infrastructure is looking to put their transactions on the blockchain?
Euroclear.
Swift.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
game change.
The global platform. This is an interview with CoinDesk and some representatives from Swift. Here's the quote: "A global platform that connects the vast majority of the world's banks has begun building a blockchain application to simplify cross-border payments."
Wow.
So, I wrote an article over the Daily Economist. Forget Bitcoin. Swift may soon put the dollar itself on the blockchain.
Oh, without a doubt. If you notice also, Paxos and Euroclear just did a gold settlement blockchain for gold, a gold settlement blockchain. Okay, and Euroclear, for those that don't know, we've been saying this for years now, Ken. Euroclear is one of the hidey holes where all the dumped U.S. treasuries have been dumped. That's one of those hidey holes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So Euroclear is approximately, I think they're sitting on about close to 4 trillion right now, maybe 4.2 trillion. It almost matches what the Fed has reported on its balance sheet. So Euroclear is sitting on about 4.2 to 4.4 trillion. And what they're doing also, you got to also understand, they're in 96 different countries. Euroclear. It's not some, one little location in Belgium. They're in 96 locales throughout the world. And they just work with Paxos to create a gold trade settlement, a gold settlement blockchain. And then on top of that, they just are doing, they did the first 2 weeks of testing is happening this coming week. In fact, starting on the 17th, I believe, they're going to start the first testing, the initial runs to have it all tested. And I think they did a beta test last month also where it passed with flying colors. So the question becomes, why are they doing this? Because they cannot, like when I was interviewing London Paul, and London Paul's a guy that people cite as sources. I mean, Jim Willie always cites London Paul as one of his sources, one of his key inside guys, and so many other people as well. Paul is an amazing guy, very incredibly connected, super intellectual. The guy's he has a PhD in economics, very connected to what's going on in the entire Eastern world and in the Eurozone in particular. And one of the things he says is that the cabal's done. He goes, it's just small little battles. It's right now it's a dust-up operation that's occurring, and he's saying that the entire structure of what's happening with the blockchain, with the Euroclear, the whole world right now cannot ignore the return of the gold standard in a new and most incredible way. And I think that's what we're seeing, especially now that Swift is announcing blockchain. It's only a matter of time before SIPS does something similar. It's what a time to be alive, guys! What a time to be alive.
I was waiting for you to mention SIPS. Very, very obvious. Swift, anything Western is scrambling. You've got, over the last couple of years, you've got SIPS, AIIB, NDB, you name it. The change is there, and China's the one running nuts over, Bitcoin. They're just scrambling on the Western end of things, trying to keep up with what's going on the other side, because the other side is where things are changing. That's where the winds are blowing from economically, period.
Right. Exactly.
The other big story that I wrote about today, you may have heard about it, you may not have all the details, but it's come out. A German PhD economist, Norbert Hering, put together all the pieces regarding the India's sudden, out of nowhere ban cash policy. And guess which agency was involved in partnership just before this happened? How about that CIA front known as USAID?
USAID.
USAID. Here's the scoop. In early November, without warning, the Indian government declared 2 of the largest denomination bills invalid, abolishing over 80% of the circulating cash. I'm going to skip down. U.S. President Barack Obama has declared the strategic partnership with India a priority of his foreign policy. China needs to be reined in. In the context of this partnership, the U.S. Government Development Agency, USAID, had negotiated cooperation agreements with the Indian Ministry of Finance. One of those was the declared goal to push back the use of cash in favor of digital payments in India globally.
Yep.
And then on November 8th, Prime Minister Modi announced the policy. Okay. 4 weeks, not even 4 weeks before this assault, USAID had announced the establishment of Catalyst, inclusive cashless payment partnership with the goal of effecting a quantum leap in cashless payments in India. This press release came out on October 14th. That said, Catalyst marks the next phase of partnership between USAID and the Ministry of Finance to facilitate universal financial inclusion. So this whole thing with Modi out of nowhere is a test case.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing was a test for the United States to try to see what would happen for a large population that uses primarily cash, what the reaction is going to be if all of a sudden you ban cash and try to, bring about a cashless society. Well, of course, this came in November after a summer where, no pun intended, Larry Summers and Ken Rogoff had been doing op-eds, white papers, and press conferences on how the $100 bill was this terrorist money laundering thing, without, of course, saying that most of the money laundering and terrorism funding comes from the banks themselves, not from people walking around with $100 bills. And so this whole thing was the basis to do this. Now, it's going to be a great question because China, as we know, if you paid attention to the web bots, hold on a second, cough button. I'm back. China, as you know, from the web bots, Cliff High at the beginning of the year, said not only is China going to allow Bitcoin to be part of their monetary system, they're going to rapidly expand internet all the way across to the hinterlands, and Bitcoin is going to be part of the entire Silk Road.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
The reason that China, people of the Bitcoin community got really upset when China all of a sudden came out in the last few days. We're going to crack down. They didn't read the whole thing. They keep thinking we're going to crack down on Bitcoin. No. They're cracking down on the Bitcoin exchanges.
Yes.
It's the exchanges themselves that have caused this volatility. And
right.
The problem is if you are a part of the Bitcoin community and whatever, you desperately don't want volatility. You want, and the volatility has always been because of the exchanges, whether it's Mt. Gox or these new ones in China that are trying to become, the head organizations, head exchanges, by doing millions of fraudulent little transactions just to boost the their numbers. But here's the interesting thing: you're going to see if the government is approving of it. You think these investors that are in China that are buying Bitcoin, driving up the price, do you think that they're necessarily private citizens, or are they third-party actors working for the PBOC?
Right, exactly. They're probably third-party actors working for the PBOC.
And think about it: if they want to build the infrastructure and all these little podunk places like Kazakhstan or wherever,
sure,
all along the Silk Road.
Have you seen the pictures of Asanta though? The capital is gorgeous.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean they're talking about the Silk Road itself is going to be through non-populated areas, and they're going to build up little towns and banks. There's going to be a Chinese bank at every single one of these depots with warehouses all along the Silk Road. Well, do you really want to store gold at every one of those places? No, but if you allow Bitcoin, which what I'm waiting for, Bitcoin and the exchanges can be denominated in any currency.
Right.
Wait to the point that Bitcoin suddenly becomes denominated in gold.
Absolutely.
And that gets to one other thing. When I started out, I talked about Bill Gross and what he thinks about the bond market. He came out. He was at the Chicago annual Chicago Economic Forum, and he said even though the yield of the 10-year has gone down to 2.37, he says if it gets up to 2.67 or 2.65 and stays above that for a short amount of time, it's gonna delineate that the bond bull market, 30-year bull market is over and we're in a bear market. And if we're in a bear market, of course, that means that nobody's buying bonds. Well, the global bond market, when you have negative rates and $16 trillion worth, you have a bear market in the US dollar, which for those who haven't seen, the U.S. Treasury has reported that the last 3 quarters, 7 months in a row, last 3 quarters have been negative. They've been dumping more bonds than they've been buying foreigners. So with that all coming about in this $82 trillion thing, if people stop buying bonds, where are they going to move to? Okay, the stock market is overvalued.
Right.
It's above the average of 20 P/E. So the risk is immense. The real estate, well, yeah, there's still some commercial and residential in places like New York that the price is rising, but the prices are back up to the 2006 levels right when the bubble hit. So real estate has immense risk. What if just 1% of the money in bonds went into gold and silver? It would completely take the supply. I mean, we're talking 1%.
Yeah.
They have to move that money somewhere. It would take the supply completely out, and gold and silver wouldn't have a bid. It would be priceless.
Yeah, CJ and I covered this earlier in the week, and the whole thing, what a lot of people miss is this. Bond markets, everybody's smelling the fissure in the bond market. They're going to get out. And like you said, man, they're looking for a safe haven. And they're going to, I mean, think about it. That safe haven's gold. And that, you can see that flight to gold. And it will definitely do a moonshot. And it's also a pretty interesting point you brought about Bitcoin. And for the audience to understand this is very key. The reason why Bitcoin is so valuable, guys, it's the technology. It's not the Bitcoin itself, but the technology behind Bitcoin. Where you have, look, we're in the Western world take banking for granted. We have easy access to money. The rest of the world, approximately 6.2 billion people, 6.2 billion people are either unbanked or underbanked. Okay? And for them, something like Bitcoin is a perfect fit. And that's why it's so vital that China wants to utilize Bitcoin all up and down the entire Silk Road, because that's how you get those that are unbankable that's how you give them access to the global economy. Number one. Number two, I've said this many times, you can go to a remote African village, you'll have no running water, you'll have no electricity, what you will have is you'll have in that village one smartphone. And it could be like a Nokia E87 or whatever, or like a Windows phone, or it could be whatever, or like an Android One phone, those cheap little handsets. And could be like a solar panel there. And that solar panel, rather than, powering a fan or a television, is charging that smartphone. That smartphone in that African village is so valuable to them because it allows them, number one, not only get their local news,
constituency there. The reason that they pressed so hard for Trump, as opposed to, for example, Bush or anybody else, let alone Hillary, is because there was this perception that during these Obama years, and even before that, at the tail end of Bush too, there was a promoting, buddying up of not just the Muslim Brotherhood extremist side, but other Muslim countries, the Saudis, etc. And it had become such a high wall, so pretentious, that Israel and those supporters in various realms had to do something to do pushback. And so the Trump victory is part of that pushback. In order to actually get the ball rolling as quick as possible, they're not going to wait until first or second year of the presidency. They're going to do what they need to do right effing now. And I believe that these little notices to Hezbollah and their suppliers in the form of another strike or two to take out warehouses where they believe there was critical components being stored is a message. That's going to go much bigger, I think, sometime literally just in the next few months. And Trump's going to be placed in a position where he has to not just verbally, but by actions, support this crowd, let them know that he's absolutely in their camp and that he's going to do what he said he was going to do, and that he's who they think he's going to be. And that will lay the groundwork for a much bigger conflict early on in this administration in the Mideast. And so what's the relevance to the currency and the trades and everything else? I am very concerned that a lot of people think that the death of the dollar is imminent, instant. And the reality is we probably do have one more round of inflation coming, similar to what Reagan had to do early on in his administration. He wanted to go to a gold-backed dollar. I remember very intricate things related to that occurring at that time and those types of discussions. But the reality is that they're going to have to reinflate the dollar to buy time for the changes they want to do in the rest of the economy. And that period of reinflation in the form of, government buying stuff, getting the military going again, these other countries having to buy supplies to get ready for what's coming in this Mideast war to come. That's going to be a lot of dollars are going to be flying around, and it's going to sop up a lot of these offshore dollars that are out there floating. Doesn't mean that it's going to be long term, and it's not going to be a perfect world, but it is going to be positive for the economy and positive for the dollar for the better part of this year is my personal read on this. I hope I wasn't too long-winded in saying that, but that's
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect explanation. Wolfman.
Yes, sir.
Questions, concerns, comments?
Right now, I would advise people this year, questions and concerns, I would say there's too much relaxation over comfort that all's well in the U.S. The trouble has passed us by. I would start making sure you're well fortified as best you can in hard assets, gold and silver. And one thing I would avoid is the favorite Western hard asset, the go-to asset, real estate. It's just too risky unless you know what you're doing. There's going to be better prices down the road. I would avoid real estate for a good while now until it becomes really obvious they have trended down and you can buy them at a much better price.
Absolutely.
Let me just add one thing here, though. In saying that, there are certain places in the country and a handful of places around the world where the real estate is going to continue to go up because that's where the business is, etc. And they're not all in places that traditionally, if you're going to buy real estate, look for some place that's already depressed and get it on the way going back up. But if we do in fact have a round of inflation coming ahead, this may be a very tight window. Whatever dip that would normally be there before you get the next spike in prices might be very short-lived, because when you get into the latter stages of economic cycles, the gyrations happen much more rapidly. If we, in fact, are going to reinflate the dollar, and that's the thing that we really kind of want to watch to see what's going to happen with this administration. But if they're going to commit to large spending to get things under control, while saying that we're going to cut spending, you have to spend some money to get these things going in the right direction. There's a lot of stuff that's already committed for spending. I suspect that just based on the way things work, not from some direct insider knowledge or something, but just based on looking at the Reagan era and the beginning of the Reagan era, those commitments to spend money are going to cause some incredible price leaps in key places where you have to be to do business. So you might want to look at those cities. There's a handful here in the U.S. that are not going to go south. They're going to go north in prices, and during this administration.
Would one of those places be Nuevo York?
I don't think so. I think that, and I don't think you have to think about the business properties and things like that. Look at what's going on in the Northwest.
It's a good, you just, it just dawned on me, bro. It's a great time to start buying up stuff in Detroit. Why not?
Well, I don't know that, I think you have to have places where things get made.
Yeah.
And, or might have the potential of getting made, where some industries that everybody expected to go away might not be going away. But the other side of the coin is, let's say that Ford's not going out of Mexico, they're going to keep the plant here. Okay, does that mean that Ford's going to be able to sell cars here? Well, what's going to be one of those big buyers? Is Trump going to make it known that the post office needs more postal rigs, needs to update, that we need new fleet for, some other agency and things like that to keep the ball rolling? Is it going to happen in farming country? Are they going to get the oil stuff going? One of the things that I think is important, and the reason why this Mideast thing is so critical, if in fact we're going to get into it big time in the Mideast, then simultaneous with that, these backers of Trump, these players inside the administration, realize that we cannot allow ourselves to be vulnerable on the oil front. And so I am pretty surprised at just how diligently the drilling and filling out of these oil things are across the northern U.S. and even into Canada. Even when prices were negative and it was very difficult for them to make profit, they didn't stop. They continued on. And I think that's indicative of the fact that behind the scenes, a lot of these players understand that they're getting infrastructure in place for a radically changing world where we're going to need to be able to get our own oil supplies. And then the only other question becomes, will this administration make it less difficult to get a lot of this easy to get oil? We don't have to go fracking to outer space. In fact, the fracking, there's a lot of incredible locations that have easy to get at oil that don't require fracking at all, but because they were closed off for military reasons as a military storage area and or for environmental reasons, are they going to push back in that and say, yeah, the new technology allows us to get it, we don't have to do it? The fracking is great, getting at stuff that you couldn't get at easily and keeping the price high. But the reality is we have a lot of cheap oil that if we wanted to just change the regulations, we could get oil and pump it at near Saudi prices. So, but for Detroit, for Dresser Industries, for John Deere, for any, Caterpillar, all of the infrastructure that would be needed to actually build out a for real domestic oil production, gas production capability, that by itself could get the country back on track. It's what saved Canada when they went after the oil sands. Canada was, on its death throes, and then when the price of oil was sufficient to justify it, they took the restraints off, and Canada came back based on oil. The U.S. could, to a great extent, too. And so what happens in the Mideast, even you mentioned Libya, that oil available or not available affects the world price because it's just a few percent, but it's a critical few percent. Same thing with Nigeria, Venezuela, and some of these other places. And the reason Libya is so critical, then I'll hand off to some of the rest of you, but the reason Libya is so critical is because the oil that comes out of Libya is a very easy to refined blend. The same as what you get out of Texas. It's a sweet Texas type crude material. The oil that comes out of Saudi Arabia, the oil that comes out of a lot of these other places, Venezuela and places like that, that oil is blended with these better crudes and then sent off to the refineries. So the refineries can relatively inexpensively process it. And if you don't, the stuff that comes out of Brazil, same thing. If you don't have these blends available because you don't have the lighter stuff, then the refineries reject it. So what's going to happen here? We have here a lot of very good oil that, in fact, is very desirable for those countries that need to be able to blend their oil. And we can be a net exporter of the oil just so they can use their own oil. And that could have a huge impact on our economy. And so I think that what we're really talking about here is does this administration make moves that are going to reinflate the economy, reinflate the dollars, even though they're talking about all these changes to get away from this fraudulent banking system that exists now. It can't be done in one day, and these people are realists. They're trying to keep the victim alive and to come up with a sustainable way of moving forward. And so this is a critical moment where we see, I agree with what was said a few minutes ago, Trump's not going to telegraph all of his actions. He's a great poker player. So those people that think they know exactly what Trump's going to do next are really, they shouldn't even be listened to, because I don't think Trump himself knows precisely what he's going to do next, unless if he has good ideas where he wants to go. But he gets right down to a moment of decision. He hears the various stuff, he thinks about it for a very brief period, and bang, he's on to it, and he's on to the next decision. So thinking what Trump's going to do next, I'm not buying that. And so I don't think we want to be snookered by all these people who think they know with precision based on his past or who his advisors are exactly what he's going to do. He's a better poker player than that. But the key things we have to watch for is the economy reinflated, and is there a threat to the energy? Energy runs the world. We have lots of it. Is he going to get the brakes off there? And if he does, that all by itself could allow America a space of breath and where we're going. And that's where the real estate's going to be expensive. That's where the properties are, those places that still build stuff to sustain the oil industry domestically, and the infrastructure that goes with it, and the build out that comes with it for other jobs to support that.
Fantastic observations, man. We're going to close up, so you guys give your last minute snippets, as well as plug your sites, your blogs, your websites, any of the work that you guys do. Ladies first, Bankster, we will start with you. Your closing statements.
My website is slaythebankster.com, and I've been on a little hiatus with my little radio shows because the company that I work with to record the shows is being reorganized and bought out by a bigger company, but we're going to start up with that pretty soon again. And I'm going to talk a lot more about Antarctica. I have, like I said before, at least 2 or 3 more blogs to add to that.
Awesome. Wolf.
Don't be lulled into sleep just because the better guy got elected in the United States. If you're a U.S. listener, hold on to your gold and silver bars and coins. They're going to come in handy for you.
Awesome. Kenny.
Yo, just remember this. The use of economic sanctions no longer work in the world.
Correct.
Analysts are predicting that the number one currency and the best growing economy for 2017 is going to be Russia.
Right.
Mhm.
And a story came out late today that one of the foreign ministers for agriculture out of Russia, who went to, I believe he's speaking at one of the G20 conferences, and he has pretty much said that when sanctions are finally removed, there's a good possibility that Russia will not go back to the previous trade partners that they had.
Yeah.
So Europe is screwed. And with that being said, don't forget to go over to thedailyeconomist.com, my website that it RSS's in all the Rogue Money articles as they come out, the different places I write. You can go to YouTube and just put in The Daily Economist. It'll pull up my YouTube channel. Other than that, I don't think I have too much.
Fantastic. W, last 30 seconds, man. Go ahead.
Well, I agree with everybody's comments on all these various issues. The one thing I would say is on the numbers, it's that second to fourth week of April that are very disconcerting. That's what I'd be watching, and all of our other comments that we had amongst the group concerning the 111 events. Watching for those out through the year, because as I mentioned in a blog to a number of people, that plane crash with the Russians at Christmas was a 111-day series of events, one of a number of them that are 111 days apart. And so I think there's other stuff in play that at least we should be aware. There's gears turning that are much bigger than just our own individual thoughts concerning money. The other stuff that's it's a series of events. Somebody's got a clockwork and they're winding it up and they're on a schedule, just like 9/11 was on a schedule. Stuff ahead of us is on a schedule and it's right on time.
Absolutely. And with that being said, guys, is the gorilla in the economist and my main man CJ. CJ, say your closing comments, bro.
Hey, yeah, thanks for everyone for being here tonight, for all the contributors, Wolf, Bankster, W, Ken. Did I miss anyone? Deb, Bankster. Thank you guys for being with us tonight. Great show. Great job, guys.
Absolutely.
And ladies.
And with that being said, guys, thank you all for tuning in tonight for another Contributors Night on Rogue Money. This is V, the Gorilla Economist, coming to you live with all the team right here. The Avengers have assembled, and they have dispensed their viewpoints on the goings on in the world. And hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. You're taking some notes, and you guys stored this information for yourself. With that being said, we are over and we are out. Take it away, CJ.